Hello, welcome again. Here we are, another session, another week. Very exciting. We are moving into yet another phase of this journey that I talk about. But before I get into it, let's make sure everything is working. If you can give me a thumbs up in the chat, please. Let's make sure that we are connected, that you can hear me, see me, say hi from wherever you are joining from, and I will get started. So, very interesting place that we're at today because we move into the next phase, and a lot of people talk to me about, the connection between all the soft skills that we've been talking about and the business skills and where technology fits into that. And today there's been so much AI, and I want to touch on that as well. But the reality is, I feel the past year or so, I've been pulled back into the technology world, and the reason for that is most problems that we come across today, the gaps in methodologies, in behavior, in team dynamics, all of that, you need to collect data, and so as a engineer, data analysis comes naturally. But to switch that to, I've studied psychology, industrial psychology, workplace psychology, neuroscience, neurolinguistic programming. I've been there on the journey from TQM in the 70s, ISO 9000 in the 80s, Catalyst methodologies. I've seen Lean, Six Sigma. I've done DISC, Myers-Briggs. The list goes on, right? Okay. And really, when it comes down to understanding those tools, you really got to test them out. You got to try them. You got to look at the data and the results that you get from them. Even the behavioral changes, we collect data. That's how AccuMatch came to be. There's the gap in all of those systems and methodologies. But it became a master's level of knowledge. And if I show you very quickly a AccuMatch map, right, there's a lot of data points that you need to understand. So this is the journey that we want people to get to. Well, right now, last year, I spent a lot of time talking about leadership intelligence and how it's founded in behavior intelligence. So when you understand behavior, first you understand yourself, you understand others, you can then align and adjust, then restructure so that it's sustainable, right? And that whole process is really where the COARS methodology has come from, all right? It's calibrate, observe, align or adapt, and restructure, then repeat that. So it's a journey. And the journey is, and I'm going to talk about that all today. That's the topic today. I'm just giving you the high level view of where we're going today. It's a journey that you repeat, and it applies to really linking, linking the, if you like, in order to become a better leader, you needed to understand behavioral science and the impact and all of that stuff I talked about already. Now, what's the use of being a great leader if you don't have a successful business to go with it? So, you've seen me do that many times, right? It's the connection between business and behavior that builds a successful organization that's sustainable for growth. Now, the intersection is always today so much more leveraging technology to help us do that. And I'll talk about that in another session. But today we're really diving into what is COARS and the intention and the purpose of it. So without further ado, let me get to the slides and get my mug up on the bottom there. So what is COARS and why did it come about? Well, if we talk in terms of, any problem starts with, identifying the problem, but the problem is a gap. What is it that we've been doing that's not working? Okay. And if we look at what's happened through my whole career, if you like, looking at what we always do is we come up with these methods, we put people in workshops, we train them, we educate them, they come out excited, and then nothing changes, right? So most organizations have done this many times, and as soon as I speak to them, they go, yeah, look, we bought many courses. How is this different, right? And the answer is, it's different because it's a journey. It's ongoing. It doesn't stop, right? All of those tools are great, but if you don't have the COARS methodology to really understand the journey that you are taking people and your organization through, and that's today the connection between the two, then it's just going to keep being little things that you try to do that you hope will work that don't work. Statistically, McKinsey, 70% of all efforts of change and transformation fail. There's over $300 billion spent each year on education, training, and most of it fails. Why does it fail? Aren't you curious about that? I was, right? And so the science is what allows us to collect data, test hypotheses, look at the results, tweak, change, improve, and so on. You should see our lab, with so many different acronyms of different hypotheses that we've tested out to get to this point. It's fun, exciting, it's frustrating at times, but that's where these solutions merge from, okay? Now, just recap on that a little bit, and I'm going to read a lot from the slides because there's just so much info in today's slides. The point on here is organizations don't fail because of their planning, their vision, their intention is great, but it's the behavior that stops it from happening. So when we have great plans that don't survive the contact with people, with the behavior, they just can't win over the resistance of the behavioral challenges and the psychological aspects of that. So we're really thinking, okay, when I talk about a journey, if you look at an organization, it starts with a product, a market opportunity. It's a journey, right? Okay. The same with the behavior in your organization. This is a journey. Your leadership style is a journey. So if you think of, you can't go leaping from A to B and expect things to stay in place. You've got to take people on a journey that builds and builds and builds, and it's evolving. Okay, and every time they reach a level, they need to go back and revisit that cycle. That's the COARS cycle that we're talking about. Okay, so it's important to understand the gaps are always going to be challenged by the behavior that they hit, right? So strategy tells you where to go, but behavior determines whether you get there or not, okay? So you can have the plan, the strategy, but the behavior is what actually is going to execute it. Most frameworks stop at the plan, or they have a start-stop, right? They end, but they never reach the sustainability that is possible when you consider the behavioral aspects of it, right? You can have the best strategies, but they'll still fail if the behaviors don't change. The outcomes are not sustainable. So what's today about? It's really the overview of the next 12-month worth of workshops that I'm going to be running on this topic. All right, we've done 12-month on leadership and behavior, self-awareness. Again, it was based on the book, right? Leadership Intelligence Handbook, and I took 12 months to go through chapter by chapter explaining the purpose and the intent of each chapter, right? And so now we go into the business side of things so that you can marry the two and create a sustainable environment. So we're going to talk about how to replace the random effort, right? Why behavior, not strategy. We'll talk about the 5 phases, and I'll talk about the certification, the COARS certification. It's really a 5-step process, but you can take them at different times randomly or follow the sequence, right? The relationship between leadership and behavior, I'm going to talk about that. And the questions that you have on the top of your mind is, how do I get started? Where do I go with that, right? So the core system, let's start there, okay? A universal transformation methodology. It's not a product, it's not a quiz, it's not a workshop. It's a philosophy, it's a methodology that repeats. And why it's a circle is, you'll see the arrow over the top of everything. It's really the ability to scale and repeat that process into every part of your business, every part of your leadership. You can use this in so many places. It's really amazing what you can do with that. Okay. There's really 4 phases and a 5th one that is the sustainability of that. And it's really born from that experience of having seen so many of these methodologies and systems and actually implemented a great many of those with different organizations within our organization, within corporate world and small business. So we've seen it in many different areas. And so the methodology is the constant. The application is the variable. And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned, the COARS methodology can be applied to a department, it can be applied to the whole organization, or it can be applied to leadership or process. You can apply it everywhere. So the application varies, but the methodology stays the same. Let's go through the letters of this. C for Calibrate is the first part of that, right? And if you have been monitoring and following with us, you know that we launched a assessment called LISA, okay? And LISA deals with the C, the Calibrate aspect, and you get a report. You can get the short report, or you can dive deeper and get a 40-page report on what that tells you about yourself. It's the self-awareness piece of the leadership intelligence. And today we're talking about the marriage between leadership intelligence and business intelligence. And COARS is that foundation, the methodology, if you like, to get you to that level. Well, I want to get you to really doing the AccuMatch behavior intelligence at that detailed, in-depth level of understanding, but we need to get you there, right? So this is the journey to become really attuned with all of the observable behaviors, the business impact, the friction, all of the things we talked about in the last 12 months now come to play through the COARS methodology. So C is for calibrate. You're going to know, you've got to have a baseline, So back to science. Yes, we've always got to, before we leap into doing stuff and changing things, we need a baseline, okay? I was talking to a mechanic just a few minutes ago about a car. They serviced it, and we're not sure whether anything has really changed because they didn't take a baseline before applying all the changes they did. So we're now into subjectivity instead of being objective with the data and results. And the same here, right? We have a calibration is that first step. And we did that in leadership. Now we're doing it in business and marrying the two, showing you how they tie together. So most organizations skip this. They don't take the time to look at the people, the behavior, the processes, the systems, and get a baseline of where they're at today. So COARS starts there. Then the O is to observe, okay? Actually go around and look at what is happening already in the organization. Look at how people's dynamics is. It's not just surveillance, it's the behavior discipline. It's observing where behavior meets business, okay? Business operations, okay? If we're talking business intelligence, and we're really using BIQ deliberately here to talk about the behavior intelligence, but also the business intelligence and leadership intelligence together. Right? Track what actually happens, right? So you've got your hypothesis, you've done your baseline. Now you're really observing to really try to understand, or not try, but actually get a first-hand understanding of what's going on. Listen to your customers, listen to your employees, do the market research, competitive analysis, do all of those things that you need as input to then shift from where you are to the next stage, which is the A, right, for adapting or aligning. We talked about aligning your leadership style. Now we're talking about adapting, right? And adapting is the intentional, deliberate changes that you make based on the hypotheses that you drew from the observation and the baseline, okay? So now you need to adapt and test and get the feedback in order to figure out if it's working or not. So adaptation is not fighting fires. It's not your reactive normal response, which is wait for something to blow up and then respond to it. No, we want to be proactive, and actually this is probably the hardest piece of this. All the other stuff is easy, but it takes a lot of effort and energy to be proactive, okay? It's so easy to be reactive. Right? We just wait for the phone to ring, pick up the phone, answer it. It's exciting. But to actually pick up the phone when it's not ringing, right, takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy for a lot of people. That's why a lot of businesses struggle to get to that first level, right? Being proactive. Pilot before scaling, so we need to test all of these things, and we are going to then move to, once we have the feedback, and then we can go to restructuring and actually embedding these things, solidifying them so that we can actually see what happened in the pilot actually implemented throughout the organization. And so that's where you roll it out, you restructure your organization for sustainability, you look for the friction points. You're still going to have things show up that you didn't expect because they didn't show up in your pilot, Okay, that's just the reality. When you start putting it into different areas and trying it in different ways, you move into that next phase. And it's only when you've done that that you can really say, right, we've got the cookie cutter now. We know what to do with this. Whether you are rolling out a new system, new methodology, or really in this case, yes, it's a methodology that you are learning, the methodology that can be used in any part of your organization, in any situation. You're learning the methodology, testing it, becoming an expert in the methodology to solve any problem. Isn't that amazing? Right? Wouldn't it be great if by learning the COARS method, you can tackle anything, okay? And applying the human skills with the tech skills and leveraging the two to analyze and get data more quickly, get results more quickly, understand, but also go back to the interaction of the behavior. So the purple line that goes through, the arrows that go through, is really about the scalability and the repetition of the methodology. Right? So, talking a lot, there's a lot to cover today, so I don't apologize for that, but let's just pause for a minute here and say, okay, well, what's my takeaway from that part of the journey? So the practice map, where have you calibrated honestly? Have you ever done that? Have you taken the time? Yeah, everybody's doing feedback forms. Are you actually using it to observe or guess or assume? You read the first couple of negative ones and blow up. What's your response cycle? Are you adapting intentionally or reactively? So take a look at rating yourself on the COARS method. 2. So the two systems, where they come together, we've talked about leadership intelligence. I've just spent, the book, 196 different strategies, situations and strategies. It's like a thesaurus of leadership situations that you can access. Volume 2 is in the works already. I already started last year. We've got all the content. We're just massaging it now, and is really going to take you through this COARS journey where Volume 1 becomes your dictionary for solving lots of situations. Okay, so that's what's happening. The 5 assessments, 4 plus 1. We might change that last one, but it's Lisa, Laura, Lyra, and Scale, I guess, is the last one, which is leader right now. I've delivered 40 webinars over the last 12 months around those things. So leadership intelligence is done. We're now going into the business intelligence side of things. So again, if we take the C, the self-awareness becomes business self-assessment, right? We're going to dive into that in the coming weeks. The next part is the observation, then also becomes the market listening, the employee feedback, customer feedback, market research, all of these things that you need to observe on the business side. Then leading by example, the adapting, aligning your style of leadership. We now need to do that with the operational alignment, the cultural alignment, and so forth. And then finally, we will do the restructuring of the team, the people. We've talked about that, but now we're going to talk about the business process re-engineering, which we did back in the 70s and 80s, right? But that stuff is still amazing because it's it's the foundation actually to a lot of the methodologies that we've seen come out, and I'll talk about those in a sec. So leadership intelligence, how do I lead better is really the question that we're asking in that journey. With business intelligence, BIQ is how does my business operate better as a system to support that. The methodology doesn't change, but the implementation is the variable, the focus of the intended result is the bridge, if you like. So COARS is the compass. I've talked about the certifications. You can do your blue, your green, or teal, amber, red, and violet to complete the whole process. It's a journey that you are going through. We are teaching the methodology, but through real life application on the leadership and the business side of the model. Okay, so it's not a pill that you can take, it's a complete journey that you need to go through, right? Reading the wheel, right? Understanding how that works, right? It never finishes, by the way. It's, as I said, it's a continuous loop. Every time, think of this. Every time you learn something new, you go back to the beginning and you are a novice at this something new. So that cycle needs to be repeated. And the same with the COARS method. Every time you make a change, it opens up new opportunities and closes maybe some old ones, but it puts you back at ground zero, and you need to go through the process again in order to get to the next level. So evolving at each iteration of the process. So draw your wheel. Where are you at? Okay. What phase have you genuinely done? Have you done any of these properly through your system? And if you haven't, do reach out and we can go through the Lisa, Lyra, Laura, Lara, etc. With you. Okay. So what makes this unique? Let me talk about that for a minute. As I mentioned, I've done so many of those past methodologies, and I've constantly felt like there was something missing until the evolution of AccuMatch, right? And again, just a quick glimpse of that. Where did this come from? Well, we were doing DISC, Myers-Briggs, Hogan, Profile XT, all of those tools. We've done so many of them, and it didn't give us the specificity that we needed for people to be able to act on changing a behavior. And so AccuMatch goes that deeper level of understanding, so you get a specific understanding of you get an understanding of the specific behavior that is getting you the result that you don't want to have, and to be able to shift that, right? But it's a journey. We needed to go back and say, okay, most of the frameworks and transformations that we've seen have a start and finish. You do your assessment and you get a report done. That's not much use, right? Or you bring a consultant in to do a whole bunch of work with you. They start, they finish, they leave. You're left exactly where you were before, right? All of these are things we've seen them over the past several decades. They're not new. They've been happening for thousands of years, right? So a lot of the second point there, this is really important. We run 90-day plans. We run annual plans. We do the I forget what it's called, the Johari window. We do the 3-5 year plan. We have so many tools, and really sometimes they work, and sometimes, with good coaching and follow-up and so on, they can actually implement those things, but most of the time they just get shoved in a drawer. We've got a Magna Carta that we spent thousands of dollars on building, and I've maybe accessed it once in the last 5 years, right? So those tools really, unless you have the COARS methodology to support them, they always end poorly, unfortunately. Okay. EOS, Six Sigma, Lean. I'm trained in so many different tools. All right, well, let's look at them. These are the top ones today, right? If you go back further, we talk about TQM, Catalyst methodology. I rolled out major corporate business reengineering. All of those tools even came before these ones. And so Lean optimizes process. But COARS asks why people aren't following the process, right? You see that distinction? Six Sigma reduces defects, but COARS will ask why defects keep recurring despite all of the controls. ISO 9000, same thing, right? EOS restructures the business, wonderful. But COARS will ask the questions whether the restructure drives the right behaviors, right? So we need to bring these things together. So COARS doesn't replace those tools. They're all great tools. It's understanding how to use them, how to apply them within the framework that allows the implementation to succeed and sustain that, okay? Which is back to behavior, right? So, framework gaps. Take a look at your organization. Name a framework in your organization that you're currently using that isn't achieving the results that you would have hoped, right? Does it address the behavior or just the process, right? Again, we're back to that relationship between the two. So what you can expect from me over the next 12 months, it's not going to be 40 this time. It's 34 sessions over a 12-month period. We're going to cover COARS from both the leadership, behavior, and business integration. And we're going to talk a lot more about the technologies, what's happening, processes, the business. In order for you to be a great leader, you must have a successful business, right? No one's going to call you a great leader if your business is failing. They're going to call you a failing leader, right? Okay, so you can be the nicest, the greatest motivator of people and so on, but if you haven't married the two, it will still fail, and that's why we are doing this. What you can expect over the next 12 months. The first 4 months, right, will be on the Calibrate. We're going to then dive into the observe, the data, the analysis, the market listening, all of that, and match them up to the blind spots so we can adapt and align a pilot, a test of the model that takes operation and leadership and behavior into consideration. Then we'll look at the restructure and how to scale all of that. Okay, so I hope you will stick with me over that time. There's a lot to cover. As usual, we record all these sessions, so they'll be on YouTube or on our platform. If you go to biqorg.com/events, I think that's coming up in the slide, so don't worry about remembering that. It will be here in a sec. All right. So with that, Calibrate, right? You're just taking a guess. You're making assumptions about where you are today, just like the example of the car. If you don't have a baseline, how do you know you've actually made any change, right? Then you need to observe what's happening. So if I use the car methodology, you got to go out and drive it, or you got to sit as a passenger with the owner driving it in order to observe how they are driving. Maybe they're doing something specific that you had made assumptions on. You just know that it's not performing at its level, but maybe it's the way that person drives. Maybe they have their foot too much on the brakes while they're accelerating, right? You're not going to get that from just the analytics of the vehicle, right? So you've got to go out there and actually engage with the world on what's happening to actually observe it properly. Then you can adapt, so you can test out different approaches, you can try different methods, you pilot it with a successful group that allows you to then have the champions that roll it out across your organization, and then you can restructure the organization based on what you learned in the pilot. That's the journey, right? I call it a journey. I don't know what else to call it, but it's you're evolving and testing and building something that is actually has a solid foundation for success. It's not a magic pill. It takes at least 12 months to get the whole thing implemented in your organization the first time. Right. So the reflection questions, have a think about these. Where is your organization at? Right. Rate your COARS yourself, if you like. Take a moment to do that. It doesn't take long. If you want to do the assessments, do reach out or click on the link is biqorg.com/Lisa, and you can start with the Lisa assessment. Start your journey today. Your assignment before next week, right? Write down what you've assumed and what is actually supported by evidence. Bring it, and we're going to talk about that a bit more next week. Bring that to the session next week. I'm going to dive in more about the journey and the bridge between the two. We'll take a deeper dive on how leadership principles map to the business equivalents and spend a bit more time on that. So, without further ado, I thank you again. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. As usual, we'll be online. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. But I hope to see you next week. All right, so have a great week. Until then, take care.